Hello and welcome to EntheoRadio. This is your captain speaking, Captain Hugh T Alkemi. I'm here with a very special guest. EntheoRadio is a radio podcast that is no longer live, and we've dedicated our conversations to consciousness and entheogens over the years. Our special guest, Lois, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Lois Koffi is a good friend of mine and a professional speaker. She's a magnetic mind sales coach, best-selling author of Fearless Entrepreneurs, and an Ironman triathlete that has coached thousands of people in business and healthy lifestyles. She has over 22 years of experience and counting, including a lot of things that we've done together and a podcast that we've been on together, your podcast, actually. And so I want to encourage people to listen to that podcast. Lois, tell us what the name of that podcast is and where they can find the links.
Absolutely. And I can provide those in the show notes as well. But it's called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. It's launched in 2020. And really, it's my mission to help people live their best lives, their best health, their best wealth, and their best innate wisdom. And it's for entrepreneurs, salespeople who really want to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. So you can find me on YouTube. Just look for Lois Koffi on YouTube, or Healthy and Wealthy and Wise on YouTube, or in iTunes and all of the usual suspects.
That's exciting. I was excited to be on the show, and I think our conversation went long into mushrooms, psychedelics, specifically psilocybin, and the reasons why people microdose and or take larger doses.
Yeah, I was very excited to have you just before Christmas, actually. And as people were launching their New Year's resolutions and their health and wealth was top of mind, especially in this world of this pandemic, right? A lot of people are going inward and looking to get to the root cause of things. And I think that's really paramount because if you don't have your health and you don't mental, physical, and spiritual health, and you don't, maybe aren't living out your best purpose and raising your consciousness, it's like life can really suck.
Yeah. So that's like that's a good point to circle back to. I want to mention that on that show, I don't talk much about EntheoRadio, this podcast. I talk mostly about the brand that sprung from this one, which is Mushroom Shaman or mushroomshaman.com. And so we did talk a lot about that. And so you may find me now, if you're a listener, talking mostly about Mushroom Shaman brand and or mushroomshaman.com products and services. But EntheoRadio is here. It's been since 2000, I think 2010. We've been doing this podcast off and on in different incarnations. So I'm very excited about continuing it in this new 2022.
It's exciting.
You're my first guest of the season, and
Oh,
we're off to a very exciting start this season. We're probably going to have some more authors on and maybe even some other doctors and coaches, friends of yours. And it's a soft start. We haven't done an episode in almost a year, so pressure's on for the good storytelling. Lois.
or are you kidding? I was born on the 1st of September because I love being first, man. Bring it. Bring it.
Well, you're first. Tell us where you grew up and why you started on the path of entrepreneurship and triathlete coaching as well as practice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We don't have 5 hours, so I'm going to do it my best to give you the Cliff Notes version. So I was born and raised on a farm in Iowa, and definitely a great place to be from. I love Iowa, but I was really always hungry for more. I think I never flew in a plane until I was 19, and I went to college in Iowa. But once I got this experience of traveling and exploring the world, I was hooked. And so I've bounced around since then. I've lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota for 13 years. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for 4.5, and now I'm in my second stint in Southern California. And when now at 44 years of age, I look back and it's like, wow, it's just amazing how that path um, got me to where I am today. And I was born, a single father raised me. My mom was a schizophrenic. I was the tail ender of 4 kids. And there's a lot of shame, a lot of trauma, a lot of really just pain and suffering through all of that loss, all of that grief. And I even had just just celebrated the second year anniversary of my brother's death. I had an older brother who, because of our childhood, all of us, we grew up very independent, very strong-willed, very, stubborn, but also having a lot of trauma. And my brother died. He was only 49, and he had diabetes from alcoholism, like a lifetime habit. And to be honest with you, that death really woke me up
Yeah.
and caused me to start going inward. The pandemic helped incredibly too, because when you are forced to homeschool and you're forced to figure out online business, and you and your husband are now, and I was jet setting around the world before that as a sales professional, and always drawn to sales because I like freedom and independence and all of the things. But I realized that I was really not happy. I was really kind of dead inside. And so 2020 helped kind of kick off that journey of self reflection of the previous, first, well, 4 decades of my life. And like, how in the hell did I get here? I, I really, and so through that process, I started seeking out spiritual teachers. I started seeking out grief counselors. Started to awaken to, man, I am like a walking, wounded, trauma filled soul who had been kind of stuffing it down and running from it
Hmm.
for a really long time. And I had become a workaholic. I'd become a binge drinking workaholic in 2020. It just like really just, I finally was like, I need help.
So
And
let me
go
pause you
ahead.
right there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of filler. First of all, I want to acknowledge you for being a wife and mother.
Aw.
How many kids do you have?
We have three together. My husband had a previous, so I'm a stepmom, and that was a traumatic thing too because I had a stepmother, and we won't go there. But yeah, it was a big deal. And so we have three kids, one from his previous, and then two together.
Okay, so you're from a blended family. You have a blended family, and then yeah. So how many years has it been with your husband?
We just, 2008, just celebrated our lucky number 13, 13 years together.
Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, that's a really big thing in this world today to keep it together with a family, a blended family especially. And then of course, I wanted him to be on the show because I do trust that he has some shamanic intuitions and he's going through a lot of these processes with you, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Hmm.
Um, and describe him for the audience. How would you describe him? I'm gonna encourage you to use a melanated word, whatever word's appropriate.
Well, let's just say I came out of the closet many years ago and was dating only black men. So I'm just throwing that out there. I like me, that whole you go black, you don't go back. That was me.
Mhm.
And he's from Africa, sweet, sweet spirit. But to your point, and he'll be on your show next. So just make sure you schedule him. To your point, he and I were both wounded warriors when we found each other and fell in love. And it was actually because of this work that we've done since 2020 because our marriage has fallen apart. I mean, it was a shit show for me in my life, to be quite frank. And to be able to come together in this work and both of us go on this journey together with you and some other plant medicines. Now, my engineer husband, who's mostly analytical, right? Now he's becoming a healer slash medicine man, taking more of a shamanic path. And again, didn't see that coming, but it was really cool when we both went inward and started realizing what was going on and starting healing and going through all of this stuff. It was like, whoa, our lives radically changed in the last couple of years.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, and I really want to acknowledge him because he's helped with the work that we've all done together, and including like our first journey where he dropped you off, picked you up, make sure you were in good shape, and that's a
Yep.
big deal. Like it's important to support each other as tribe, and I think this day and age we need more friends and allies regardless of racism and or prejudice towards different people's look or culture or background.
100%.
um, I also want to acknowledge that he is from Africa. And so, because he is from another country that you and I are from, we're from America here, United States, he's going to have a basis for things that are unique and different ancestrally.
Mm,
maybe a little bit more connected to the ground there, a little bit more connected to the traditions there. Whereas, I I would say most of our bodies this lifetime, you and me, speaking to you and me, are immigrants
mm,
brought to America.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
there is a lot of ancestral grief associated with giving up the homeland
mm,
and coming to a new world.
mm. That makes sense.
Hmm. Let's go into, so we met because you are the mushroom lady, mushroom coffee lady.
Yeah, that was so adorable. So when I guess short story, when I moved to San Diego, I wanted to find people in the health and wellness space and so on and so forth, because at that point, was a sales representative for a mushroom coffee company. And it changed my life because again, all of the things that I mentioned, I was addicted to sugar and coffee like nobody's business for a really long time. And so I had to wean myself off because it just was not good for my gut, not good for my health, my central nervous system. So I really fell in love with this mushroom coffee, and I was on LinkedIn and doing some searches for some San Diego people, and all of a sudden, mushroom shaman or whatever you had, mushroom man, I can't remember now what it was on your LinkedIn profile. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta know this guy. So we connected in the fall of 2019, pre COVID, and actually we met a few times. We connected, and then I know you moved away. I went through my journey that 2020 gift me, this whole awakening experience, and about, I would say, the very tail end of 2020, beginning of 2021, when someone said, Lois, you're stuck in your head. You're stuck in the past. You have too much fear, trauma. You're just holding on for dear life and you won't let go. You got to get out of your head and into your heart. And you got to check out mushrooms or ayahuasca or whatever. And having never done a drug in my whole life, I was like, okay. I trusted this person, spiritual mentor. And right away, my husband said, whatever happened to that mushroom guy?
Oh,
So I was like, oh yeah. So I reached out to you. I didn't even know you had moved or I had forgotten. And then, or you were moving, and we did our first shamanic walk of microdosing in April of last year. And that's what kicked off, a much deeper dive of what I had already started in 2020 of healing, letting go, and going inward and finding myself.
so that's exciting. Well, I think we're mostly up to speed now. But I guess it's 2022. So we did that walk, and then you did deep dive. And that's the nitty gritty of this conversation, because consciousness somewhere for you was like, I need to change, I need to grow. My vessel, my enclosure of both my mind and my spirit are kind of barricaded by ancestral trauma. You said that somewhere inside of yourself, like my emotional stuff is related to my ancestral stuff, is related to my upbringing. And you're like, I need to break this box. And so you are already in that direction with sales. You're already in that direction with Iron Man and coaching people. And then of course the mushroom coffee. And this is really fun because it comes up to speed to me. I'm like, I got excited about it because I love salesmanship. I love shamanism. And I'm kind of like, I see them as pieces of the same puzzle. Just culturally, they're a little bit set with different conditions and parameters, because ultimately things like mushroom coffee, you drive that sale with the promise of healing. Shamanism, people come to the shaman with the promise of healing most of the time, of course. And then, of course, you're like consciousness expansion. You were selling reishi mushroom coffee, and that was really exciting to me because I think of reishi mushroom as one of those really high, holy, royal Chinese herbs. And so it is very helpful. Now, you could take the good with the bad. You were also maybe drinking a little bit at that time. You were also using coffee at that time. And I myself don't think there's anything wrong with coffee. I just, along with certain other things, can't imbibe it every day just because it shifts my consciousness in a way that is less intuitive. I become maybe too much type A, too competitive. and too high strung. And I like running kind of calm if I can. Then I get to my gut. And my gut tells me, okay, this is good for me. This is bad for me. But if I'm up in my head, maybe it doesn't happen as much. And
And a lot of salespeople are like that. Trust me. Now that I look back outside, I that oh yeah, so many type A's, so many achievers. I'm an Ironman triathlete. Hello. So and then again, that all came back to my childhood and just being asleep, as my spiritual mentor would say. He's like, Lois, you're asleep right now. And I'm
yeah,
like, no, I want to wake up.
I think we just got a little bit of clouds go overhead, so the lighting got dim. I'm gonna turn the lights on in here. I didn't think about it until now.
That's okay, no problem. I was gonna say you look good. It looks good to me.
All right, there we go. Yeah, we're getting some slightly cooler weather. We were getting some heat here, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's like springtime already!" And now we got back to where we should be. I think
Yep.
I'm in Arizona. You're in California. Um, so the triathlete stuff, I really noticed that about you. It really felt like the first time we encountered the medicine work when we did our first medicine walk, which is, in your case, it was a dose of psilocybin, a low dose of psilocybin mushrooms, or the cubensis mushrooms. And we just went for a little hike, and I was kind of like a talkative guide of yours where we did
Mhm.
mostly psychology work, and or regression or reframing of trauma and or difficult situations. um, you you have overcome a lot of things, I would say physically, and then at that point in your life you had already overcome a lot of physical challenges. You had incredible willpower. It's just that willpower and that physicality maybe set up, and a lot of it happens for a lot of people, including myself. It set you up for focusing on things that were more likely to keep you from remembering stuff you want to feel about, stuff you need to get out, and the only way to get it out is through emotional expression, crying, throwing up, throwing a fit, all of those things that happen, let's say on a traditional ayahuasca retreat or with a traditional ayahuasca shaman using the medicine appropriately. And I had a sense that that was where it was going. And, months later, you proceeded to do that kind of work. Like you jumped right into bigger doses of both psilocybin and ayahuasca. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Um, and I apologize. I think my internet. Okay, I must be back. Cool. So I did go all in. I'm a full immersion kind of person, and it's not because of like what I perceive as to be like a all or nothing personality. I've really come to peace with. I have a learning personality, and I love to learn. And I knew that for the past 13 years or 15 years, by the time I started doing this, that I'd been so like asleep, right? And medicating my medications, all of the things that I mentioned already. So I found a group locally and you concurrently, and I did one nights. Occasionally, I did 2 nights of these doses of medicine, plant medicine, and just finally went inward. Finally, was able to, you know, shut this off for better for worse. And thankfully, I've had nothing but amazing experiences. I've been able to reconnect with my deceased loved ones who all died in the past, few years, especially. I've had,
Processing
ha-
grief, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was crying. Like the
That's
first
and
session I had with you,
yeah, the first full dose session.
yeah, I was able to cry and release tears, and then just have visions and reconnect with the ancestors, the past people who passed. Because I've also had a lot of friends commit suicide. I just know a lot of people, and so it's been a lot of grief upon grief upon grief upon grief. And so a lot of them, I cried like you talked about. I released a lot of tears over the past 12 months, or well, I guess it was April when we started. But I've done about 12 supported either by you or another group that I'm connected to here in San Diego, with facilitators, guides, people who were trained. I would never, do it on my own per se, although we might get to that later. But the whole idea was to just go within and release and visit places that I probably didn't want to visit, and then also connect with my master guides. I've had visions of my book. I shared that with you. Not going to say the title yet because it's secret. Only Hugh T Alkemi knows, and my
Okay.
husband. But um, I got told what my book was going to be all about, and like the whole thing. So I had visions of my future, connecting with my past, releasing the trauma, and then I also visited some really scary, dark places. The places that I didn't want to visit. So it also taught me and allowed me to go deep enough, because like you said before, I would work over my pain emotions. I would escape, whether it was alcohol or sugar or busyness, as I call it.
Yeah.
Busy is a swear word to me now, because now I understand, for me at least, what I perceive as busyness is an avoidance, coping mechanism for people not wanting to face the pain, the truth, and heal, right?
Yeah.
And so to get to that root cause, I had to, there was some journeys where it was dark the whole time, and I was like, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
But I will have to say, mushrooms and what I've done with you has been still my favorite out of all of the different plant medicines that I've tried up to date. I know there's Wakima and San Pedro and other ones, that I want to check out, but it's I don't want to keep rambling, but I mean, story after story after story of each one, I came out with another little bit of an awakening, another little release of the grief and the trauma, and now I have a spiritual practice. I didn't before. I was like so dead and even traumatized by religion, right? Because that was a part of my childhood trauma. But it saved my marriage. I can honestly say, once my husband, it took him a while, but after I went through maybe 2 or 3 journeys, he jumped in and we did a couples one. And now we've done multiple ones, with you and, with this other group. And so now we've seen each other in a different light. Like literally, he's seen me in a different light. He saw me in one of them as my 2-year-old version of myself, and he cried like tears upon tears because he finally understood his wife's pain at a much different spiritual transformational level.
Yeah.
And we know we're healing, past ancestral stuff and future, you know with our children. So it's not about just our own inner journey. It's how can we heal ourselves so we can heal the world, heal the planet, bring together, this conversation more and more, because more and more people are realizing, talk therapy didn't work as well for me. I
Mhm.
needed something that would literally go help me go under and go inward at a much deeper level.
There's some amazing experiences that you've had there. Has it encouraged you to do new things in your life, to take new perspectives, and give us some examples?
This is a big one for me. As I jokingly call myself, a redheaded stepchild who had a really intense, overachieving type A personality, who was really hard on herself, and a perfectionist and all of that, shifted me to self love, self compassion. And guess what? If you have self love and self compassion, and trust me, I'm still on my journey. I still can get better. But now I have more love and compassion for others, including family, including people who before would really piss me off, right? Even driving down the road, I'm like, oh, I just got cut off. That's kind of fun, instead of giving them the salute, the finger. And even with my children, I'm now spending more time with them, more intentional time. My partnership, my husband, we have our own spiritual practice now that we created out of all of the experiences that we've had become way more intimate. Hell, I'll say it, our sex life is much better. So there you go, another benefit.
Hmm.
And then just
You're more
being able,
connected. You're present and you're more connected. And that's really what sex is about. Good sex life. I mean, there's other sex lives.
yeah, yeah, we won't go there, but anyway, and then of course untapping or tapping back into my forgotten passion, my creative space, which was writing. I had, because of retriggered trauma and then running from the pain and trying to, layer of shutting out consciousness and my truth, I didn't write much at all. So to have this vision about my book and to have more spaciousness in my life, that energy to write has come back. And I'll say one final thing. I know that I'm showing up differently on sales calls. I'm showing up differently with clients, and people are noticing that energetic shift. And I'm a lot, even though to some people they're still like, whoa, she's kind of, big energy. I'm a lot calmer, big energy. And so I'm attracting even more amazing clients than I ever did before, who are like, yeah, here you go. Here's $10,000. I'm ready. Let's do it. Whereas the scarcity and the fear that I had, that was stuck inside of me from the ancestral trauma and all of the things, I would still freak out about money. I would still, potentially, as a salesperson, right? A salesperson is considered bad because they're pushy, you know,
Mm.
and relentless. And now, even though again, I still have room to grow, um, I'm more like, oh, that's not the right client, not the right time, and it's perfect. And things are just, sales are more natural. And again, I'm working a lot less. So I'm making more money working less. Oh my God, that right there is a massive shift for me.
I think that you're more present and you're more sensitive, and because you're more present, you're more sensitive intuitively, naturally, and that's what a lot of these substances will do. The non-addictive psychedelic substances that force us to see the dark spaces or the repressed spaces, when we take larger dosages of them, when we take them in a responsible set and setting, with loved ones around, and obviously not kids like pestering us, but I mean like people taking care of us, guiding us,
Hmm.
to look at the stuff that is the reason why we're not present, and then let it go, feel it. There, it's been felt. It's part of the somatic experience of this lifetime, and that's that. We've moved on, and
Hmm.
so it helps you to reframe the pressure that you're maybe less sensitive to because of your sales training. You reframe the pressure on the subject, the person that your magical sales ability is affecting and
Hmm.
causing them to make change or take action. That pressure, if it's so high that it's not worth the frustration that is a result of the person taking action,
Hmm.
then it's really not satisfactory. And so you're like, all right, let's reframe it. I'll be more creative. I'll find someone new. And
Hmm.
there's always an opportunity for bigger, better, more creative, a different reasoning maybe. And
Hmm.
that's such a beautiful thing, because not only with the use of mushrooms and ayahuasca and microdosing, you've become a lot more curious about
Hmm.
feeling energy and the reasons why there is a no or a rejection of a sale. And
Oh,
yeah, go on. Tell us about that.
and trusting intuition too. Like before, um, that's going to sound bad. I was going to say BM before mushrooms, but you know what I mean. Um, I was like, game on, I'll work with anybody and everybody. And I had business partners who definitely came more from that push, 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 masculine, dominant, like, we don't care if we steamroll over people. And that woke me up when I started going through this work. My intuition finally said, hey, you might want to trust your gut on this. And I let go of, and I don't know that they'll be listening. I'm not going to name names. I love all of you. You were all great teachers in my life, so it's all perfect.
Hmm.
But as I evolved and raised my vibration and consciousness, those people went away, right? And I attracted better mentors, better coaches, better partners, business, and then even, better clients, because I started also not just relying on the sales process, but also intuition and allowing, just putting myself out there and trusting that the right people will come to me. I didn't have to force and try to hunt and find, as much as I was doing, because I was in a lower vibration, more masculine dominant, not balancing out the feminine and masculine components, and where that's more feminine's more creative, intuition, spaciousness, right? And then the masculine is the goal setting, and all of that is good, right? But I was just way too much this. And now I'm like doing that twin flame, Mary Magdalene talks about that cosmic twin flame of masculine and feminine. And that right there is like life changing for me.
Absolutely. So, for those of us who are just tuning in, maybe you've jumped in and someone else is listening to the show, we got Lois Koffi here.
It's Kofi, but you
Kofi.
can say coffee.
Sorry. I just realized I said it wrong too. Kofi. Lois Koffi here, and she's going to tell us all about where to find her story, her stuff, her future books, and coaching. So you see, once in a while I'll work with Lois, and once in a while we'll make it open to friends and family, and we'll do groups. But for the most part, the brand that I'm representing and EntheoRadio are sort of standalone from the services that I represent as Hugh. So I prefer to work with somebody who filters customers, clients, and new friends. And Lois is that person in Southern California. And I would also love you, if you're a listener, you're wanting to burst your box and change, possibly with microdosing, possibly with life coaching, reach out to Lois. Where can they reach out to you?
Yes, so a couple different places, and I can provide you links directly to loiskoffi.com, loiskoffi.com is kind of like a hub. And then I would just recommend tabs on there so you can check out resources. I've got a lot of free resources on my resources page, so loiskoffi.com/resources. Then, if you want to find my podcast community, I have a Facebook group, Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, but the easiest way, the one-stop shop is again, loiskoffi.com/podcast. You can find Hugh's interview from December in there, as well as all of my guests, and the Facebook group. If you want to join the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise Facebook group, that's kind of a nice community of like-minded people. And then you can see my show. And then last but not least, you could go to the loiskoffi.com/services just to learn more about who I am. But the most fun ones are the first two, because my podcast and community has a Hugh in it and a lot of amazing, amazing guests. I really screen my guests very carefully. So health experts, business wealth experts, and then of course different wisdom experts like you and a lot of other people. I've had almost 200 shows, so that means there's almost 200 guests on there that are pretty amazing and accessible. So those would be the places that I would recommend.
Absolutely. I've had the esteemed honor of working with Lois and befriending Lois and being in her life and her family's life and her husband's life for over like 2 years now. And it's really, really been a pleasure to meet the people that she's coached, because they end up being really like go-getter types, like wanting change in their lives. And I would say that you're probably one of the preeminent wealth influencers, coaches in my life. Even though you're not really coaching me on the regular, but you do drop precious gems and things once in a while that I go, oh, wow, if I just did that instead of what I'm thinking about, then it would be change.
It's all perfect. All perfect. Yeah. Well,
All
thank you.
right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Anything else? Any final parting words? I do want to encourage you to come back on with your husband.
100%. Oh yeah,
And
that'll be
I don't
amazing.
want you to steal his fire, so you might have to be quiet background noise.
Oh, I can be eye candy. I can be his like whatever his plus one and be very quiet. Because I just love listening to him now, especially since he's evolving.
Hmm.
You know, I think my only last words are even though it takes a lot of courage and bravery to go down this path. I mean, we're heading into a new world of, you know, you're either going to be in a fear place, stuck in fear like I was, or you're going to be raising your consciousness and going to this amazing, amazing new space. I don't really think there's any in between on that, based on what I've seen and what I've experienced. So reach out to Hugh, reach out to me. Love to give any guidance or encouragement, because it's not for the faint of heart. And if I look back at where I was even just 1 year ago, not sure if my marriage was going to work out, feeling like a worthless mother, struggling with grief upon grief, being hard on myself, all of it, not writing, not doing my true passion, which really is writing and speaking. Um, it's incredible what can happen if you take that brave, courageous next step. And just starting with microdosing like I did,
Hmm.
but don't stop there, in my opinion. Humbly, that's not enough. You got to go do a deeper dive and with someone who you trust and who has good recommendations like you.
Absolutely. The heroic dose conversation comes about when you make that kind of suggestion, and I want to say like I discourage the heroic dose protocol, but I do encourage the heroic dose actual measurement. So the protocol tends to be Terrence McKenna laid it out. It was like I think it was 5 or more grams of magic mushrooms in the dark, alone in your room by yourself.
You're
And I'm like,
wrong.
no, 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 that is bad set and setting. It's good for maybe the advanced practitioners.
Ugh.
That whole isolation chamber thing can be really helpful for somebody who's on a deep spiritual path and wanting to experience some of the deeper states of um, breaking down the walls of the ancestors and having them come in and give you uh, a pseudo schizophrenic experience. But by all means, and Lois here is a testimony. It is good to take a
Mhm.
larger dose. Microdosing is the beginning of that experience, just so you can kind of ease into the maybe new experience, anxiety that a lot of people get when they have new things in their life, new feelings in their body, and then yeah, that's a great thing. And I know you've done it with me, you've done it with other practitioners, and I encourage people to do it with their loved ones. You've done it with your husband, and that is a conversation for the next podcast.
Yeah, oh my gosh, to be continued. Part two will be, they say, the rest of the story, and it'll be a good one.
Yeah, we can. Oh, that would have been an ideal Valentine's Day. So we Valentine's Day continued. We'll shoot for March, and we'll grab him for Fat Tuesday, and that's kind of like Valentine's Day continued.
Ooh, I mean, we would actually make a really good Easter edition. I'm just throwing that out there. But yes,
Easter,
we could do
Easter.
Fat Tuesday, Ash Wednesday. I mean, he came from the Catholic background, and again, not throwing that under the bus or anything. It just he has had even more grief and more trauma, and more reason to suppress, repress his journey as well. So it's pretty timely. So.
Yeah, we can have a whole season where we focus on psychedelics and healing the family, healing with the family, healing with the dead and the living members of the family. And
Yeah,
that's maybe
especially
that's like our gonna be our spring season fun, exciting stuff.
yeah, because when you think about family of origin, and I love them, and I've had so much healing, and I'm in such a better space, and the dogmatic religious backgrounds and what that does, especially through this upcoming season of Lent and all of the things. I know we could support and hold space for a lot of you listeners out there who are really struggling. I know I won't name names, but I know someone who I referred you to that bought your microdosing said, "Yeah, I got to take microdosing before going to the family Christmas dinner, let me tell you." And I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, don't blame you.
Oh yes, I feel you. Whenever I want to have a reframe, whenever I think, oh crap, I'm doing the same thing, I'm feeling the same thing, I'll just be like, all right, well, as nervous as I might be about looking strange, acting strange, I'm just going to take a microdose. And I almost every single time have fun, smile more, and are just happier in the same old, same old.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Lois Koffi, sorry, loiskoffi.com is where you can find Lois.
Hmm.
And you can find EntheoRadio on EntheoRadio.com. You can also find us on everywhere you can discover podcasts. I believe we're broadcast across the different podcast airwaves, including Google Podcasts, and I think we're on iTunes now. I definitely know we're on Spotify and iHeartRadio, so keep looking for us. Some of our main hubs are our accounts on Stitcher, and you can find us under the spelling for social media ENTHEO Radio. That's EntheoRadio, and all of the various subsidies of what I'm doing with my life. So some of those you heard in this conversation, Mushroom Shaman brand, and that's on social media as well. Lois, I really want to wish you a wonderful full moon. Today is the full moon.
I know, right? We picked a great day.
Right? But when they're listening to this conversation, it may be a little bit later. So today is the 16th of February. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for doing what you do and being who you are being and becoming. And I'm super, super grateful to have you in my universe.
Keep on keeping on. If you're a listener, be aware of your consciousness and join us next time for EntheoRadio Conversations.